Everyone happy to be here this morning? Yeah, amazing. Well, we have an awesome opportunity to have a chat. Now, some of you don't know the story, and some of you may not even know who these wonderful people are, but you probably do. They are very involved in this house. They've been for some time now. Harley is our worship pastor here, and Jean is our finance director here in the house, and they both have dual lifestyles. Jean is we don't know what he does, and Harley, because he can't say, but Harley is a justice of the peace. So she wears two great big hats, and we're just so appreciative of them. And they have an amazing story and journey that we're going to dive into this morning. And so, how are you doing?
We're awake. No.
You're awake.
Yeah, we're awake.
You're awake. Well, you've had a crazy last 4 months, I guess, 3 months, since December, was it 6th, where you picked up and left everything and lived in the U.S. for the last 7 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks. And many people don't really maybe know why, but they kind of see like something has changed. What has changed in the last 6 to 8 weeks in your life?
Jean has longer hair. Needs a haircut. Jesus, you're good. We adopted. Yeah.
You didn't just adopt, though. You adopted not just one, but two kids.
Two. Yeah. We had twins, boys, Ring and Justice, and a crazy, crazy journey, but also what they represent.
How many kids do you have now?
Oh, true. Good. We have 4 kids. Already 4 kids. Eli is... in total, we have 6 kids. Yes. I'm still
they're so
learning
new.
math. Yes.
So
So Eli is 15, Luca 13, Mishka 11, Kelani, the only girl, is 8, and Justice and Ring are 5 months. So busy house.
A lot of testosterone, a little bit of estrogen. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So when did this journey, we're going to go back. Let's go back in time. Where did this all start? Why adopt? What did God say to you? Because this is really a story of the miraculous for you.
Absolutely.
And Michelle and I have watched in large part this journey unfold and unravel. The heartache, the pain, the ups, the downs, the no's, the stop signs, the green lights. Like, we've kind of watched it all. So bring us back to the beginning. Bring us to the origin of where this all started.
How far back do we go?
Well, you could even go as far back as when you had your 4th child and what happened there.
Okay, I'm going to start. You're going to continue? Okay. So, actually, it all started with my great-great-grandmother.
That's back. That's back.
Really back. But there's a reason why there's miracle. My great-great-grandmother had twins who died. My grandmother had twins who died. My mom had twins. I was a twin. She died.
Your mom
so your twin sister died.
Yeah, my twin sister died, and then, yes, my mom had another set of twins who died. So I grew up knowing that there's something off. And I don't want this. But I grew up knowing that I wanted to have twins. So when I got him, I'm like, bro, you better be ready because we're going to have twins. And then we had, I had some physical issues, and the doctor said that I will not be able to conceive, but God is good. 4 kids later. And then when I had Kelani, to make it short, the doctor did what we call a forced sterilization. So basically just cut my tube and said, you have enough children. You're good. We're going to stop here. And we were in shock. We tried 2 IVF because we never felt like our family was complete. So we did 2 IVF. And they were both unsuccessful. Do I go into the promises? Yeah. For the last IVF, I clearly remember. No, for the
Explain
first.
what IVF is.
Yeah,
for those that
IVF
don't know what IVF
is
is.
in vitro. You know, they make babies outside of your bodies and then they put it back and it costs a fortune. But it makes miracle. So when I did the first IVF, I remember Sunday morning, I'm getting ready to go to church, and I'm praying in my heart, and I said, God, please confirm that this makes sense. And I'm just praying in my heart, and I walk into the church, and I saw someone from church, and this person stopped me from one of the leaders and said, I had a dream. I had a dream that you had twins. So I was like, ooh, that's it. That's it. We're going to have twins. But I had a miscarriage. And then we did the IVF again, and it didn't work out. And I'm like, where are my twins?
Let me just go back for a second. Like, so you see the history of your family. You see the assault. It's clearly a pattern. There's no coincidence in any of that. It's clearly a pattern. You feel like there was someone that told you, though, an aunt or something.
Yes.
Tell us what the aunt said to you
Yeah,
when you were your cousin, when you were a child.
Yeah.
What did they say to you?
Yeah, so I was 10 years old, I remember sitting at church, and there was missionaries coming, and they gave their testimony of adopting twins. And my cousin looked at me and she said, this is going to be your story.
Okay, so really, it feels like the first prophetic
Yeah.
word came from your cousin at the age of 10.
10.
Maybe you wouldn't have thought it was prophetic at the time, but now that it's all unfolded, you realize, man, that was so prophetic and profound. And I mean, at 10 years old, imagine, you know, this is all coming to fruition. How many? You don't want to say how old you are. I know you never like talking about
15
your age.
years. I'm 25 forever, so do the math. Okay, 15 years ago. And
So-
then, yeah.
So okay, so you have this word, you're 10 years old, you have this word, you're gonna have twins, you have 4 kids, you do the in vitro, you know, you lose the baby. What else was God saying to you in this process? Because I want to connect it back to, you know, we all have these words that we feel like are from God, or we have this insight into our future, into our like purpose in life, and yet we go through all these wild ups and downs. Like Abraham, like God promised Abraham he was going to have like descendants that were more numerous than the stars in the sky, yet he's like 99 years old, no sign of baby time yet, like no sign, you know, as far as like the promised son, you know. They got frustrated in the process, tried to take matters into their own hands, and then you know what happened there, you know. And Isaac and Ishmael are still fighting today. That's another revelation for a different time. But you know, so you're you know, God's speaking to you, but like where did God begin to speak to you again as an adult now, as it pertains to the promise? Like, what were some of the dreams you had? What were some of the reoccurring things that God began to keep reminding you of to continue to believe? I want to ask Jean.
I think for me, I married into a promise, right? Like it was her promise. It was her, you know, it was part of her generational blessing that she had to go and claim. And so I married into it. And as in that, I wasn't necessarily getting those dreams, getting those words myself, but it was still something that I partnered with her and would steward. And I think that's, to me, that's how my role, that's not my role, but that's how I played out my part in this, is where I would partner with the word, with the dream, and you know, just go through the different steps, trying the IVF, just having babies ourselves, then having the IVF, and just going through the different steps of working towards that. And every time we were doing that, we were still believing for the promise. We were still believing that we'd have twins. And like, even when she was pregnant and you'd go for the first ultrasound and like, oh, we hear one heartbeat. And we're like, no, there's a second one behind, you know? Like, really that dream, that belief was still there all along. And
Build a house.
yeah, the house that we have right now, we built in with the view of having a bigger room, so that when we'd have the twins, there would be a room that was big enough to put two of them in, so that they could share and grow up together, at least to a certain amount of
But
time.
you built this house before you even had
Correct.
like one child, right? Or
We
two?
had
1.5.
You had 1.5 on the way. Okay, so you built a house for 6 kids before you even had 2 kids. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
You built a house. What year? What year was that?
2010 is when we started. Yeah.
Okay, so you see this like progression of faith here. Like you're when God gives us a word, we create space for Him to fulfill the word, and that's a radical step. I mean, and Michelle and I have watched you. Like Michelle, like tell us what your perspective has been during this process. We're gonna get into a little more of the like details here, but
always positioned yourself, right? And the word was always like, the story's not over. Your story, even till the very end, was like, your story's not over.
Yeah,
your story's not over. And it's cool that it's called Everyone Has a Story. But yes, it's like you always position yourself. You always believe. You do not allow your circumstance. But you guys tangibly, that was what was wild with us, is that in building your house, you made room for those twins.
Yeah. And even the next house.
And
that
even
we're
the
building.
next house, and then they go this far of like, it almost looks like the promise is not going to happen. And still in your new house you're building right now, you still made a room for the twins. Like, that's wild.
And telling the builders, oh, we're going to have twins. And they're like, you already have 4 kids. They're like, no, we're going to have twins. So we need to have like a shared bathroom. And they're just like, you guys are crazy. Uh-huh.
it's honestly inspiring, you know, as being in their corner and watching all this unfold. Like, I know for Michelle and I, it's been super inspiring to watch how you've continued to position yourself practically. People position themselves spiritually all the time.
Yeah.
Like in prayer, you know, they believe, they declare. On Sundays, they worship, they declare their promise, and it's going to happen. But you really positioned yourself, not just in prayer, but practically to the place where you built a house for that to happen. And I think that God is speaking this to us in this season for our personal lives. Like, we need to build spiritual houses, build spiritual spaces for our promises to be fulfilled. It's like if God's given you a word, like build space in your schedule. Like, that's one way you can build a house, build a space in your schedule to see these beginnings unfold of the things that He's spoken to you that He wants to unfold in your life. And so,
Yeah, and you guys didn't just do this with the kids. Even with your job and going to the promised land of being a judge, you actually took a step back in your job. Like, you turned down a job, a higher paying job, took a lower paying job because you knew that having that job would position yourself better potentially to become a judge. And you took that risk, right? And you trusted the people around you, your mentors in your life in that area. And I've seen you do this in both of you guys in many areas of your life, where you literally shift physically your position, even if it doesn't look too great, because you so believe that it's for the promise. Yeah, and it's amazing. You guys are inspiring me, that for sure.
So God gives you a word, 10 years old, things are unfolding, you have 4 kids, you build a house, you're creating spaces for this promise to be fulfilled, and then you go through the adoption process. That's the next part of your process. 2 years, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Because you really felt to do that. And then, put all this money in. You did it in the U.S. specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you want to adopt an American baby? Is it because America's better than Canada?
We wanted to fill out the house to have 3-3. No, one of our sons is born in the U.S. No, we were debating whether or not we want to do adoption, and we decided that we would do the Pride course. The name of the course has nothing to do with LGBTQ. They just call it Pride, and which was a bit abnormal. Usually people would do a whole bunch of other steps before taking the course. Being ourselves, we went outside the confines of what normal people would do, and we decided to take the course first just to see, because we were still debating whether or not we want to do an adoption.
And I just want to say the reason why we didn't do the IVF in vitro and GET is because the last time I almost died. And the doctor told me, if you do it one more time, you're going to die because your body cannot take the hormones. So it was like, there you go.
Right.
Can I just I want to just pause you for 1 second. I want you to continue on that thought quick. Like, you guys went through all of this, and you didn't disconnect from community, which was, I think, one of the biggest, for me, encouragements of your strength and your perseverance is that, like, many of you didn't know all this was happening, and they didn't miss a beat. I've been around this long enough to see when people go through crisis, there's a high chance that they disconnect from what they need the most, and that's community. And they didn't just not disconnect from community, they didn't disconnect from even their role within community. And that's just that was a huge, like, wow, this couple, like, doesn't compromise their values on the altar of hardship. And so many people do. So anyways, I just wanted to say that just as an encouragement to you and as an encouragement to me, just watching you guys, it's incredible. So continue on.
But also the kids were watching us. Like, we didn't keep the process like in secret. We involved them. We took the risk because it was a risk to involve them. And they saw the success, they saw the failures. And it was like, how are we going to navigate as a family through the failures? So we knew that they were watching us. And disconnecting was not an option because they were looking. And we wanted to leave a legacy. Go ahead.
Yes. So we did the Pride course, and in that course, you know, at the end, they ask you, like, hey, what are you looking to, like, what type of children are you looking to adopt? Babies, older kids? We were like, no, we want baby boys, or not baby boys, but infants, and preferably twins. And this was like a course for Ontario, or at least offered by people from Ontario, and they're like, you have zero chance of adopting even one baby infant because you already have 4 kids. In Ontario, there's not enough people putting their infants for adoption that if you stay in Ontario, you're just gonna wait. You're gonna, like, just stay in that queue forever. So, you know, maybe it was right, maybe it was not. And we played I played the odds, I guess. We decided that we would go into the U.S. process for adoption because it's a much larger country, and there's a lot more birth moms putting up their babies for adoption. So,
With the risk that it was expensive.
with a huge caveat that it was
3 times more expensive.
Yeah, probably at least high 5 figures, low 6 figure costs to adopt in the U.S. So it was a huge choice. It was a huge risk that we'd go through all this process, and even then in the U.S. there's no guarantees. So we did those steps, and there was ups and downs in the process where we did the course. We were pretty sure we want to do that, and then life continues, and COVID happens, and all these things are happening, and we started slowing down in the process of preparing ourselves for the adoption, to the point where we were ready. Everything was ready except for our profile, and eventually we got our act together. We got the profile in at the end of August, start of September, and then they started showing our profile, and we were now ready to adopt. But in talking with even the American agencies, they're like, yeah, you have chances of adopting, definitely. There's a lot more moms here, and there's some that have grown up in large families, and that's what they want for their kids. They want to replicate what they experienced because it was a good experience. So, it was comforting, it was encouraging to hear. But even there, they were like, twins is extremely rare. In all our years that we've done this, we've only seen like a handful. And so we're like, okay, that's fine. Like, what your experience is doesn't define what my experience is going to be, because at that point, we had faith that we had the promise. And so we went into the process, and
Mishka's dream. Talk about Mishka's dream.
yes, Mishka.
Before we go
and
there,
then having twins come along, but then also having the mom to pick you of all the sea of people, right?
Yeah.
Now, before we
exactly.
just go there, I just want to piggyback on something because you said that you kind of were married into a promise.
Yep.
In the sense of when you were a single guy, you didn't think it wasn't in your mind. I'm going to adopt 2 twins. So you kind of married into a promise. You support it. Now, like, let's just, people would be watching you and be like, well, man, these people are just like, incredible man and women of faith, and there was no doubt along the way. Like, did you as the man ever doubt, like, do I even want this? Am I just doing this to, like, be a good husband?
Growing up, I mean, I grew up in a family of 2, and I remember having conversations with Harley when we were even just friends. We weren't even, had no interest in each other more than just being friends, and saying, like, my view of a family, I'd probably have 2, maybe 3 kids. And I was happy with that thought. And when we hit 2, I was happy. But she still had that.
She kept pushing.
She kept pushing. She had that desire, right, for the twins. So I was like, okay, twins brings us to 4. I'm like, that, we're okay. I'm okay with that. I can do 4. And then we had the 3rd one, Mishka, and I was like, okay, 3, 5. I'm like, okay, 5, it's still doable. And the whole process, like, I wouldn't say I actively desired having more children once I hit 2 or even 3, but I was always happy to go for more.
Okay,
because
but
to me it wasn't. I was happy to partner with that promise, and I mean, children are a blessing. I as much as I don't want to hold your children, I love my children.
Okay, so, but just on that though, I think this is actually a really important part of the conversation, because I feel like part of the conversation is the fact that here you are partnering with a promise that's not, you didn't feel like was yours initially. It kind of becomes yours. You become one, so you kind of support. Like, you watched your wife go through all this process of like stop signs, even with the in vitro. Was there ever a point where you're like, babe, let's just stop that? Like, this is not. Did you ever come to a place where you're like, I don't want you to die. Like, I still want a mom at the end of the day to mother the kids that we do have. Was that ever a thought in your mind?
Yeah, for sure. Like, even having the 4th baby, she had 4 C-sections, and with every C-section comes a greater risk that something happens during the birthing process of the next child, where it's a 50-50 chance, or basically a 50-50 decision on the doctor of, like, we save the mom, we save the baby. And I always told Harley, like, I love my children, but I don't want to raise the children without you. So if 50-50 comes up, I'm choosing you every single time. And even then, it's still not a guarantee. Like, things could happen. So when the decision of, like, when the doctor basically asked, like, do you want us to tie the tubes or not? To me, it was like, well, yes, I want you to, because I don't want to risk losing her. But at the same time, is like, I know the dreams that she has. I know that she wants more. And so I didn't want to make that decision. I should have made that decision from there and just be like, no, we're not going to tie. We're going to take our time to think. But, at that point, it was a struggle between I want my wife versus I want to partner with the vision, with the dream. So, like you're saying, it's up and down. Like, I wasn't perfect. It wasn't like the whole time, like, yeah, we're going to have 6 because now we have 4. We're going to have twins. It's going to be easy peasy. But it's a process. Like, on some days, it's not even in my thought pattern of, like, oh yeah, we're gonna have twins one day. And on other days, it's like, yes, we're praying into it and we're believing for it. And I think it's something that we have to remember, and something that when you look at, like, Hebrews 11, there's so many people of faith. Like, the writer is always, like, saying, hey, these people were amazing. They did all these great things. And when you read it, you're like, that's not how to say it in Genesis. Like, Sarah was not in this for having babies. She was like laughing at the promise. And yet it says that she had great faith. Like the writer does not talk about how the reaction was on the moment. It was just how she partnered with the faith, with the promise eventually. And a lot of these people, or actually all these people, it says, went on without seeing the accomplishment of the promise. And I think it kind of, while we did see the accomplishment of this promise, I think it does shadow the fact that in the process, we weren't always firm on our decision, our confidence that it was going to happen.
Yeah, and that's the thing about faith is like, there's doubt comes your way. Doubt comes your way. I want to shift gears into the pain part here with Michelle. I want to shift it into
there's so much. I know the story. There's so much. We haven't even hit the good part yet.
Yeah.
So I just want to get it moving.
Yeah, I want to shift it into the pain part.
So now you're in this. You guys are in the system. Basically,
Yeah.
you're in the waiting game.
Yeah.
Tell us just some of the things that happen in that waiting game.
Well, Mishka woke up one morning and he said, Jesus gave me a dream. So Mishka is my kids, they dream. Anyways, and he goes to heaven frequently. It's no big deal, right? If you tried, anyways, no big deal for him. He's like, what, you don't go to heaven? Like, and I'm like, no, Mom. no, Mishka, I don't go. So anyways, he said, I went to heaven, and Jesus said that in those specific days, the babies will be born. And we're like, okay, what do we do with this? Like, I don't want to disappoint his faith. I don't know what to do. So
I guess the one thing we did do was we hurried up to finish the profile.
Yes.
Because at that time, we still hadn't finished it. So
yeah. So we decided to partner with his faith and to believe. And so we wrote down, we had a countdown. And at the end of the countdown, nothing happened. And he's like, but nothing happens. And I'm like, something happened. We just don't know what. We don't know exactly. So we're in the waiting, and it wasn't long. Like they start showing us end of August. And then end of November, we got an email saying that a mom wants to talk to us. She has twins, boys, and the date of birth was very close. Unfortunately, I can't remember, but it was really within the time that Mishka had the dream, that the twins were born. So, I'm at work. I get this email. Jean is at work, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, what? Twins? For real? And even the agencies, they're like, as if, guys. Like, twins never happen. And as if this...
She picked you guys.
And she picked... And not only
it
that...
happened so quickly.
Yeah, it happened so quickly. But not only that, the mom was leaving 15 minutes away from the place we resided when we were in the States.
Where Mishka
Maryland.
is born.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
born in D.C. and the boys are from D.C.
Yeah, Maryland
Like, isn't
specifically.
that
Yeah.
wild?
So we're like, whoa, hold on a second. This is God. This is what we're seeing at that moment. This is God. Among all the states, it's in Maryland where we have our community. We still have our friends. We're still connected with the church over there. So we're like, wow, this is amazing. And Jean had dreamed that the babies would have blue eyes. And we're like, okay. But that was from, because I'm like, bro, black eyes. And I think your brother is adopted because he has blue eyes. I don't know where it comes from, but that's a family secret. Anyways, and so we saw the picture of the twins and they had blue eyes. So we're like, oh, this is amazing. This is great. They were already born. They were just 3 months. And the mom wanted the process to happen quickly. Like very, very, very quickly. So we had a conversation with the mom. She loved us right away. It like everything without incident. Everything is beautiful. And that was beginning of December. So the mom is like, so when can you come down to the States to take the babies? And we're like, okay. So we're speaking with the agencies, and she's like, it will take 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So you guys will be back on time for Christmas. So we're like, I'm packing for 1 week because hey.
And I came over to you that day. And you're like, we're going to be back in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I had a word. I felt like I was holding a word. And I'm seeing her, she's on a high. And I'm like, I was like, do I tell her? Do I not tell her? But I had that morning, it was like I was trying to get somewhere. And my tire, I had a hole in my tire, popped the tire. Then I was trying to get to your house. There was like a road closure. And it was just so much like I was trying to get somewhere. And it was just challenging. But eventually I made my way to your house. And Sean made his way home. And anyways, it all worked out in the end. But it was like lots of extra time and obstacles and road closures along the way. And I felt like that word was for Harley. So I was like... I was like, you know what? I'm going to tell her. I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to tell her the word. And I just saw it, that it just went over her head. And I told her, I'm like, it didn't. You did not want to receive it. You're like, but I'm like, I'll be there. Yeah. I'll be there. When it's time.
Yeah. I'm like, 2 weeks. We're gone for 2 weeks. Michelle is like, sometimes we hit some road closures. No, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So, yeah, we... went to the States for 2 weeks with all the children. Because we're like, it's only 2 weeks. It's going to be fun to go back, to show them, our friends and where they grew up and all that stuff. So
Can I just say this, too? I think sometimes, just to piggyback on what Michelle said, sometimes in our journey, it's actually okay to not hear and even, embrace the reality of what will take place, because if we hear the reality, sometimes we reject the journey. Like if somebody told you that you were going to spend 9 weeks or somewhere and this was all things were going to happen, you'd be like, ooh, maybe that's discernment not to go.
Absolutely.
Right? So we miss out on life sometimes because we let the reality of what will be distract from just us embracing the promise and the hope. So just continue on. So you got a call. You left December 6th.
Yeah.
And you were there for longer than 2 weeks.
So when we got there, meet with the mom, and then, I don't know, all the delays happened. The lawyer got COVID. It was the holiday, so everything was closed for 2 weeks. The mom decided to take her time, so it was no longer, I want this to happen quickly. She was like, I still need to think about it. And in the meantime, we're in a hotel with 4 kids. And
6 kids.
No, you had the
no, because we had the twins right away. You're right. We met with the mom on a Wednesday, and then on Friday, she's like, you can take the kids. So, we had the kids from the beginning.
But you couldn't leave the U.S.
But we couldn't leave.
Tons of paperwork. She has to sign certain papers.
Yeah, and she didn't want to sign the paperwork. So it was like lingering. She was... And again, I want to honor the mom because it's such a hard decision. We're not talking about a woman who was addicted to drugs, mental health issues, or doing some, human trafficking, sex trafficking. This is a very smart woman, healthy, who struggled financially, who knew that she didn't have the money to raise the children. So it's hard. It's really hard. So we felt that we had to honor her. Honor and loved on her. And just be there for her because it was such a hard decision.
Okay, so just for the story's sake, for the people in the room, because we want to speed up a little bit to get to the sort of the challenging part and how you navigated this. Because now you're thought you'd be back for Christmas, you weren't back for Christmas. This is when the disappointment probably began to set in a little bit, right? Your kids probably are getting a little bit agitated, want to come home. It's overwhelming. You're starting to probably doubt now, is this mother going to release her kids fully at this point? It was January where things begin to not look for sure.
No, it was still good.
It was still good in
It was
January,
still
okay.
good. We were dealing with the delay of
The delay, okay.
okay, the end of the delay for her to change her mind. So she decided to sign the paperwork, but then for 30 days, she had the right to change her mind. And the end of 30 days was on January 19, I believe. In the meantime, we were dealing with the kids because the kids were done. They were missing sports, their competition, they were not happy. So we were really trying, the hard conversation we had with the kids. But let's speed up. January 19, go ahead. Want to go ahead? No, he doesn't want to. So you're going to jump. Okay, January 19, it's the end of the deadline, 5 p.m. The agencies are like, that's it. The mom didn't sign the documents to take the babies back, so the babies are yours. It's the end of the journey.
So victory.
Victory. We're like, woohoo, victory. We're packing. We're good to go. There's a little bit of snow outside. And the mom called us, and she's like, I would love to see the babies before you guys go back to Canada. And I'm annoyed. Because I'm like, you didn't try to see the children before, but that's fine. So Jean said, let's extend grace. And it was my turn to partner with him. Because I was like, you're right. She is leaving the children. So he told her, we're ready to go, but we're going to leave on Saturday, the next day. And come meet us at the hotel between 10 and 11 so you can say goodbye to the babies. So we're Saturday. The van is loaded. We're ready to go. We're in the lobby with everything. We're ready to go. And the mom shows up with her mom. And that was off because her mom was always against the adoption. So we're like, oh, that's weird. But, that's fine. So they both come. We're holding the twins. And the mom and the birth mom and her mom are like, can we hold the babies so we can say bye? So we're like, okay. We hand them the babies. And then the grandmother left with one of the twins and came back quickly. And she told her daughter, which is the birth mom, go straight to the point. And we're like, what's going on? What's going on? And the birth mom's like, I'm taking them back.
Okay, so let's just pause and say
Yeah.
for a second. Imagine yourself in a situation. You've wrestled, you've toiled, you've believed. All the signs are yes. And at the very, very last minute, it sounds like a no. Imagine what you would feel in that moment. So keep going. What did you feel?
No words, like distress. So because of my legal background, I'm like, no, there's a contract, the 30 days, trying to get a hold of the lawyer, the agencies. It's a Saturday. It's a Saturday morning, and our agency is in California, so 3 hours difference. So it's still very early in the morning. We can't get a hold of nobody. And the grandmother's like, what are you doing? Everybody's sleeping. Nobody will answer your phone call. So I was like, shakaraba, shakaraba. I was trying to find a way, because for me it sounded illegal. I'm like, there's a kidnapping it's happening. And what do? Do I physically grab the babies? Because at that point they are no longer in our arms. They are like screaming bloody mother with the grandmother and the mom. So we're trying to get a hold. We don't know what to do. Finally, the agency calls us. They're freaking out because it never happened. Never happened. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. And at one point, she's like, just let her go with the children, and we're going to figure it out what to do. And in front of my kids. And I'm like, I couldn't think. I couldn't. So I just cried. Like I never cried in my life. Actually, the last time I cried like this, it was when my best friend died in front of me. Like a deep cry, and one of the baby was still holding my shirt as I was crying. So the grandma took the baby away, and I'm holding the mom, and I'm really crying. And I said, please don't take them. Please don't take them. And she's crying as well. She said, I'm so sorry for doing this. I'm so sorry. Because what you don't know is actually the mom was forcing her to do this. And we're crying. Kelani is crying. Mishka, Eli, and Luca are upset. Jean is trying to be rational. And she left with the babies, and we're just in the middle of the lobby without the babies. And we're just crying, and we don't know what to do. And then my phone rang, and I saw the name of Sean and Michelle, and I'm like, I can't pick up that phone. I just can't. And my pastor, being a pastor, being persistent, he called until I picked up that phone. And then,
Because at that point, we would have told a few people, like, hey, the mom's changing her mind, please pray. And we kept Pastor Sean and Michelle more or less updated as things were progressing. It happened fast, and it took a long time at the same time. Like, it was 11 something when the mom showed up, and it was like 2 by the time everything was said and done and we could leave, just because they had to get her to fill a paperwork, because legally those children were ours. She had signed them away. We were the legal guardians, and so she couldn't take them back until she signed some other piece of paper. And so that took a long time, which made the process all that much harder, because you're now sitting in a lobby watching someone basically taking away your dream, taking away the promise, and trying to still love the person and not hate them. Trying really hard to not open a door to something that we don't want. Because at the end of the day, at that point, I won't say I was like super spiritual and that I knew it was just another test, but I knew it was a test at the same time of like, how am I going to react? This is, you only get one chance. Kind of like how Bill Johnson said when his wife died. He's like, you only get one chance to praise God in the midst of loss. And while I'm not going to say that I was, having a great worship party in the middle of the lobby, I was trying hard not to stay focused on the promise, and to remind myself of all the words, all the things that happened, everything that now just wasn't making any sense, but trying to remind myself of those promises and hang on to it, and hang on to the person that had said them, not the people that he used to say it, but the God of the promise.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. I think it's a very powerful moment for you guys. It's a turning point moment, because your story, I feel like, is reflected in so many people's lives in this room, but I think the difference sometimes is we give up. We give up when all the signs go from pointing yes to all of a sudden seem to be pointing no. Do you put more faith in the no or more faith in the yes? That's always the tension, right? And then I know for Michelle and I, like, in the background when that happened and we were calling you,
It was like, I cannot believe they're driving back home, because not long after, you guys were on the road driving back home to Canada without the twins.
and it's like an 8-hour, how long of a
After
drive?
many,
It's like 8 hours.
45 days of being there, you're driving back home without the kids. And it was just so surreal.
So it's almost like you here's your promise. No, taking it away. and now you're left for 8 hours in discouraging silence with 4 kids driving back without the gift, without the promise. And
After sacrificing so
after
much,
sacrificing
and the
so
kids
much.
sacrificing, having their Christmas and all that stuff, right? So.
And I know, and
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I know like that can be a shame point. Like for me, when I've lost moments or I felt like I've missed it, the shame comes in. Like, man, I'm like, where's the thing that I put everything into believing for? I have nothing. And so I remember when we were calling you, Michelle and I were processing together, like praying, like, God, what do we say? What's the word? I know Michelle had a dream. I don't remember when the dream was that the kids were in Ottawa. So we knew at some point there was like a hope even in us from our vantage point, the kids would be in Ottawa. How long, we didn't know. And then I was praying, and I remember I had this vision of this like gift, and it was wrapped with all these like hoodie ties, like in weird, like scraggly ways, like, and it just looked so complicated. And I knew in my heart, I'm like, hey, I believe, but I'm like, there's so much complication to this process. How do we pray for them?
Yeah. And I think for us, like, the only thing we were able to say was, like, it will be there for you for, because you guys were, obviously just to be there, be present with you guys. But it was that your story is not over yet. It's not over. It's not over. It's not over yet. That was the only thing I didn't know. I knew what to say. I didn't know what to say. But, like, the story's not over yet. The story's not over yet. So then you guys are back home.
But
You're
can
here.
I just say one thing? During that 8 hours of driving, I was super silent. I couldn't say a word for many days because I was trying to protect my thought and my words. And Pastor Sean, when you called us while we were driving, you said there is a war over what you believe of God. And it was confirming what Jean was saying. So, because it's so easy at that moment to be mad at God, to doubt God.
Yeah, what I was saying, just to clarify, what
Yeah.
I did say, I remember this
Yeah.
conversation, is like the war is not for your promise, it's over keeping your trust in God, who is the source of your promise.
That's it.
And that's actually the greatest war that all of us have, because we can easily come into idolatry with our promise. We can idolize the thing that God's going to give us and lose trust in the process of the source of who He is that gives us these things. And so, yeah, just I think it's the war for all of us in the room, right? And I just want to say this because I remember, like, you guys came to our house, like, so you drove home. I don't know, the next day. And I'm just, if I can just say this, like, I knew Harley couldn't hear from me. I knew that I couldn't speak to Harley. When she came to our door, and I don't want to expose you, but I think that's okay. It was like I saw Elijah, the prophet, alone in the desert. There was like you were like just not yourself. And I had a conversation. Michelle sat with you in our lobby and talked for like 30 minutes or whatever, and I went into the garage with Jean. I had a conversation. I told you, I said, your wife can't hear me say this. What I was saying to you, your wife can't hear this right now, but I know it's the right thing.
Yep.
And I want to read this, and I just want to dive into this. And we're going to go a little longer today. I hope that's okay. Are you guys okay? Is it okay? It's like I do want to bring in some scriptural elements to this. And I think this is huge because this is what we were talking about in my garage. And I want to read some of this here. In Genesis chapter 22, we're going to put it on the screen for you. I felt like, even though what I saw was what I felt like was Elijah at my door in that place of it was just discouragement, hopelessness. I felt like your journey was that of Abraham. And Abraham was given this promise, like you guys, for, descendants that were more numerous than the stars of the sky. He's getting older and older and older. No sign of the promise, yet God keeps confirming it. God keeps confirming it. There's prophetic words for Abraham. God keeps confirming it. And he's like at the end of his life, and still no sign of it. Finally, he has Isaac. Finally, the promise is fulfilled. Years go by. And now God's like, I want you to give him up. Imagine that. You finally get you get what God's told you he's going to give you, and now God's like, give him back to me. And it says in Genesis chapter 22, verse 1, and I want to read part of this here, so just track with me. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. I feel like he was testing your faith. When you had the promise, and you had to give the babies back to the mother and the grandmother and leave without it, it was like that was the test. He's testing your faith. It says, God called, sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. Abraham, God called. Yes, he replied. Here I am. Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you. Now, this is like rated R type level moment here. This is messed up. The next morning, Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey, took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set out for the place God had told him about. Now, Abraham would have told Isaac, we're going up to a mountain to make a sacrifice to God, to worship him there. He wouldn't have told Isaac, you're the sacrifice. Okay? So just kind of put yourself in this position for a second. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance, and he told the servants to stay. Hey, I'm going to bring my son alone. This is where it gets really messed up. You guys stay here. Me and my son are going to go alone to offer a sacrifice by ourselves. So he said to the servants, stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will travel a little farther. We will worship there, and then we will come right back. I love that it says, then we will come right back.
I know. Love it.
But I think there's 2 elements to that. I mean, maybe there was some faith there, but he also is not going to say, hey, only one of us is coming back. Like, that's just not going to happen. So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them walked on, Isaac, I love this, and I read this, and it's like, it makes me almost want to cry a little bit, because it's just a crazy scenario to think about. Isaac turns to his dad and says, Father? Like, yes, my son? We have the fire and we have the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? Like what an amazing question. Like, where's the sacrifice? Like, Father, like I just imagine the scenario. Father, like we got all the elements, all the ingredients, but we're missing the main course. Who's the main course?
Don't worry, Baba. God will provide.
Yeah, it's messed up. So verse 8, this is what Abraham says, God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son, Abraham answered. Like, I don't know about you, but like Abraham has a word that Isaac is the sheep. He's the sacrifice. But he's somehow fighting this tension. There's got to be an exit door. God has an exit plan for me here. There's probably this duality going on in Abraham. And so they when they arrived at the place where God had told them to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son. Now he's tying his son, Isaac. But here's the thing, you guys. It's the willingness that God cares about. Are you willing to still, because Jesus said it like this, and I'm going to just connect it here really quick. Jesus said it like this, unless you hate mother, father, sister, brother, family more than me, you have no place in the kingdom. What he was saying is not hate the way we understand hate. What he was saying is, unless I'm number 1, it's not going to work out for you. I have to be number 1. You have to love me more than everybody else. I teach my kids this. I ask my kids, who do you love more? My Harvest says all the time to me, Jesus. And Harvest asked me this week, my youngest, 7 years old, like, who do you love more, me or Jesus? And I say, Jesus. She says, good, because so do I. But we teach our kids this, like, at the end of the day, like, who's first in your life? Who's first place, right? So it's the willingness. He puts the son on the altar on top of the wood. Abraham, now, look at this, picks up a knife. It's like it's like a crazy horror movie, like messed up, like psychotic moment. And as he's in this place of willingness, God calls to him and says, Abraham, Abraham. He's like, yes? Like, please quickly tell me what I'm supposed to do. Here I am. Don't lay, I love this, verse 12, and I want to highlight this. And then we'll shift back to this conversation. Verse 12, don't lay a hand on the boy, the angel said. Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son. Now listen to this, so powerful. now I know. Now I know you truly fear God. What Abraham was being tested in is Isaac more important than me? Is your promise more important than the one who gives the promise? Do you care more about the gift than the giver? This was the test for Abraham here.
Yeah, it's good.
The willingness to let go of it all was the sign that God could truly trust Abraham to be a part of one of the greatest covenant blessings on the planet, in the cosmos. That Abraham would be known as a father of faith, not because he had Isaac and didn't give up, but because he was willing to give up Isaac, to put God first. Right? You see this, right? And then Abraham looks up, verse 13, and sees a ram caught by its horns in a thicket, and that became the sacrifice. And I was talking with you in the garage about this, and I said, like, I feel like you're going up the mountain. You're going up the mountain, and it's like you're basically, in your mind, you're letting go of this promise. But there's something inside that God is doing as far as he's warring for you to war for trusting in him, keeping your trust in him, while you're walking up the mountain, feeling like you're going to let go of the promise. Remember that conversation?
Yep. For sure, yeah. Yes, I remember that. And
That you didn't tell me.
well, yeah. But you weren't listening, so you weren't in
In
a.
that space.
You were still.
Thank
You're
you.
still by the brook by yourself, so healthy boundaries. Yeah, and I think that whole conversation also started with, I think, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but in my mind, I was the one that brought up that I felt like Abraham, and like this was an Abraham and Isaac moment. And Pastor Sean kindly said that, yeah, I think you're right, but I don't think you've sacrificed Isaac yet. I was like, oh, great.
And that's why he couldn't tell me.
Yeah. But there is something, God works in very interesting ways, in the sense that it was at the same time, in the same period, that I was listening to a podcast, and the person was talking about Abraham and Isaac. And it was just after we had had that conversation. If it had been before, I bet you I would have missed it. But because we had that conversation, I was quickened, like my spirit was quickened to listen. And the person said something really, really powerful. The Bible has something, like there's something that we call the law of the first mention in the Bible. And the first place that we talk about worship in the Bible is there. Abraham says, or God says, you know, go kill your son as an offering to me. But what Abraham says to his servants is, I'm going to go with my son to worship God. And so what Abraham did was he took the promise and he worshiped God with it, saying that you are greater than the promise. You're the one that I worship. And what happened at that point of worship, is that God revealed himself in a way that he had never revealed himself before, as the God that provides. And, you know, to me, and I'd been, you know, pondering this, and maybe I'll speak to it again on, like, when I do an offering, but really, God reveals himself to our worship as the provider. The fact that we worship, and worship can mean many things. You know, like Jehovah Jireh, as soon as I say that, 90% of you probably think like, oh, money. But Jireh means God provides, the one who provides. And he basically will respond to the worship. In the way that you are worshiping him, he will respond as the provision to that worship. So where we were laying down our promise and laying down this dream, God was responding and saying, like, yeah, this is just a setup. You're going to get them back. But we didn't know that. And it wasn't like, there wasn't that, oh, I see the ram caught in the thicket, until the Monday evening when the mom basically sent us a text at the end of the day. She's like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" Which was really
Okay, so just context because we got to speed this
Yeah.
up. So
Yeah, wait 2 seconds. So you guys are mourning basically a little bit, but have a bit of hope. And what did one? Tell me what your kids said to you. Just
Oh,
to like.
yes. So I'm crying. It's going back
where
home.
are we in the story though? Just so we
we
don't
are
lose
we
her.
are probably Sunday.
We're in a story where they're like kind of like.
Yeah, we're still
they're
mourning.
grieving,
Yeah.
they're just the loss of the twins.
So we
But
got to the
you guys
house.
you're in tears.
We're in
The older two
tears.
were a little. They're sad and
Yeah.
annoyed.
Yeah,
But-
everybody is.
But when your two youngest came in the house, I was just surprised how.
Oh no, they.
Because tell me what they said to you.
So I'm crying. I'm in the house. Keep in mind that the house was ready to receive the twins. So there were cribs and baby stuff, and I'm crying because it was a reminder of what I didn't have. And then Kelani looked at me and she's like, "Mommy,"
Who's your youngest? How old is she?
my,
Just to give us
she's
context.
8. She said, "Mommy, you need to stop crying because Jesus told me that we're going to have them back." And then Mishka comes and he's like,
That deserves a clap. Yeah, that deserves
Yeah.
a clap. There you go. Yeah.
and Mishka comes and he's like, "Yeah, I had the same dream. We're going to have them back." And they moved on.
Yeah, they saw like my kids. They were like, "Hi!" They were totally fine. Like they were.
They were
confident,
done.
Like for them, it's like,
Yeah.
we're gonna get them.
We're
It's
going to, yeah,
just not here
stop
yet.
crying. And every time, I was crying, she's like, "Mommy, I told you to stop crying." And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was hiding to cry, but they had this revelation and they were done. They're like, "Why are we crying? Why are we still thinking about it? We should." And even Kelani's like, "We should get ready. Like, what do we need to get them? What do we need to get?" They had such a faith that it looked almost like they were not sensitive to the situation, but they had like just a strong faith. They're like, we know they're coming back, and that's it. And then in the meantime, we're dealing with the agencies who are saying, "Guys, it never happened. It's impossible. She's not going to give you back." Actually, the reason why we're freaking out is the last time the mom took the babies back after, the deadline, she killed the children. She killed the child. So that's why they were freaking out, because they couldn't get a hold of her and they were really afraid for the kids' safety. So they're saying, "You're not going to have them back." And then on Monday,
just to be clear, not the same mom, a different mom.
yeah.
On Monday, she sends us a message saying like, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Is this person for real?" Like, she's asking us how we're doing, and it was a heart check. But to just go over quickly, like we responded with as close to the truth as we could without going off on her, and we were vulnerable. We said like, "Yeah, we're hurt. It hurts." But by by maybe over the course of an hour, she basically said like, "Guys, I still want you guys to have these babies," and that started a process of another 2 weeks of like back and forth with her, of like almost feeling like she was toying with us at certain times.
Would you say though? And I think this is important.
2 seconds. We gotta let them just finish.
I know, but
what happened at the end.
before they
the
go there,
2
though,
second
just before
time.
they go there.
And she has to go
Yes.
So you need to let's finish because it's 11:16.
This has never happened before
No.
in an interview. I've done a lot of interviews, and this has never happened in an interview in my life. But okay.
So that's why I'm like we need to just get it to the end.
Did she signal you on that, or?
Yeah. She's been singing at me.
Oh my gosh.
at
Okay.
times.
Well, that's no shame there. Okay. Well, hey,
So
it's never
just
happened.
keep going with the story. You get the texts from her.
Yeah, so we.
Before you do that, though, I think this
Yeah.
is important. In that part, though, in that journey before you got the texts and there was hope again, Did you feel like there was some shifts in your heart before that happened? Did God do some things before that you say, okay, I came to a place, and then you saw the shift happen and she texted you?
I definitely, our conversation set me in or reset my way of looking at it, and it was a friendly reminder, or maybe not a harsh reminder of like, make sure that you're not looking at the promise, but you're looking at the person who gave that promise. And I will say that yes, it was true. Probably 90% of me was looking at the God of the promise, but I was holding on to the promise sometimes, and only looking at that at certain moments. And God is not, God is not up there saying, or around us, whatever way you want to look at him. God is not up in heaven saying like, oh, you're just thinking of the promise, just thinking of the dessert that I said you're going to have after dinner if you ate your peas. God is still in the process with you, and he still loves you. And
welcome back.
And so to me, while it was a harsh reminder of like, yes, I need to reset my focus on God, it wasn't a like, oh, I failed again. It was just a like, okay, I need to make sure, along with making sure that I kept my heart straight and not let offense and hurt and bitterness come in, which were all real emotions and all real, we would have been very valid in having those reactions. But at the same time, it was also okay, I also need to make sure that I don't make an idol of the promise, because the promise, if it becomes an idol, is useless to me.
That's important, because that's what happened here with Abraham. God tested Abraham's faith in this moment. It was already being tested for years, but in this moment, it was a different type of test. And I think that once we shift things in our heart, we open the door again to hope, and we open the door again to really the breakthrough of the whole story. So now bring us to the end of bring us to the climax. What's the conclusion? She texts you. What happens next?
So
you got to speed it up a little bit.
Yes. So she texted us saying if we would be willing to take the babies back, because she realized that the babies were happier with us, and she realized that it was a mistake. So I think at that point we were already in a place of forgiveness. So back and forth, couple emails, everything is set. We're ready to go back to the States. And then this time we leave the kids in Canada. And when we go there, we have a meeting with the mom to take the babies back. And we met with the mom. And the first thing that she said is she apologized for what she did. But forgiveness was already in our hearts, so our hearts were just like full of love. And then she said, my mom is here and wants, now the mom, hey. Oh, in my head, I saw what I wanted to do to the mom. To the grandmother, but when I saw the grandmother, she was hiding behind the birth mom, and I just said, "Can I hug you?" And I think she was very surprised, and I hugged her, and she hugged me back and didn't let me go, and she said, "I apologize. I'm so sorry for what happened. You are good people. You are good people." So it was such a story of redemption. When we told the agencies and the lawyers, like, you need to know we were dealing with the biggest agencies in California. They said they've never heard such a story of restoration and redemption. Yeah. And the whole time, during the whole process, we never hid our faith to the mom, to the birth mom. We were always open about the fact that we believe in God and we go to KC and all that stuff. So the first Sunday we came back to Canada and we came here with the twins. In the morning, I'm sending her a message and I said, hey, we're getting ready to go to church. And later on, she messaged me and she said, I decided to go to church as well. So, yeah.
Amazing. What a story. What a story. You know, I think about how we close a conversation like this and kind of connect it back to what I believe God is saying to us as a house and you, and also you both as well. And I believe it's a prophetic word for you. But I love in the chapter I read earlier in Genesis chapter 22, after Abraham sees the ram that's caught by its horns in a thicket, in a bush, and he offers the ram as the sacrifice in replace of his son, of course, Isaac. It says in verse 14, Abraham named that place Jehovah Jireh, or Yahweh Yireh, which means the Lord will provide. To this day, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. And I want to say this, like, that provision comes with a higher perspective. You open the door to God's provision in your life when you get a higher perspective. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. Whatever you need begins with a better higher perspective. If you need healing, if you need whatever it is, that's our pursuit in life, to get higher. That's what repentance is. Repentance means to go back up to the high place, the penthouse of God, to see what he sees. And when you see what he sees, you change. You transform. You alter your lifestyle. And so it says here in verse 15, then the angel of the Lord called again to Abraham from heaven. So after this happened, the angel called again to Abraham from heaven. Verse 16, this is what the Lord says. Because, and this is a word for you guys, it's a word for our house, because you have obeyed me and not withheld even what I promised you, your son, your only son, I swear by my own name that I will certainly bless you. I will multiply your descendants beyond number, like the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will conquer the cities of their enemies, and through your descendants, all the nations of the earth will be blessed, all because you have obeyed me. And I believe it's a word for you guys, that this fight for you was about legacy. You have 6 legacy levers in your family that are going to multiply. And God will certainly bless you because of your willingness. And through all the pain, it all had a purpose. And the purpose comes down to prophesying to the future generations of the blessing that's going to come on them because of your sacrifice, because of your perseverance, because of you were willing to let it all go and walk away, to keep the fact that God's stillness number one. You are willing to let it all go so God could do what he wants to do in legacy in your family. So I want you to stand up, because I feel like for so many of us in this room, we need to hear this in this season of our lives. There's things that you've given up, you've walked away from, maybe you've kind of put aside on the bookshelf, spiritually, metaphorically speaking. I just believe that your willingness is everything. And I want you just to close your eyes just for a few seconds here and just think about those areas of your life where you can relate to something that was shared this morning. You felt like you were on a track, you felt like you had a plan, there was a purpose, and then things just got thwarted. And maybe you've been in a 2-year waiting room, a 3-year waiting room, and the thing still hasn't happened. I just believe that once God can fix the heart and change the heart perspective in your heart, in your mind, he can open the door again to the promise being fulfilled in your life. And so, God, I just thank you for this room. I thank you for this room of legacy leavers. I thank you for the room of people that are going to bless the next generation. I thank you for this room, God, of people of perseverance, people of faith, people who are not going to give up when life hits them hard, when obstacles come their way, when circumstances come their way that are not easy to navigate, when hardship comes their way. God, I pray that in this time of their life, God, that they would continue to trust you as the source and not in the promise. Trust you as the source of it all at the end of the day, in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. And maybe you're in this room right now and you don't know what would happen to you if you were to die today. You don't have a relationship with Jesus. But just remember this, that just as Abraham had to be willing to sacrifice his son, Jesus is like our Isaac. willingly gave himself on an altar, willingly gave himself on a cross over 2,000 years ago to give his whole life for humanity. Jesus was like our Isaac in some way, and I just want to encourage you that in this room right now, maybe you don't have a relationship with God. The Bible says in Romans 10, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that on the third day he was raised from the dead, you will be saved. That's the starting point. Sacrifice and acknowledging the sacrifice, the greatest sacrifice, is the starting point to your salvation, the starting point to change everything for you. And maybe you're in this room and you've never confess that Jesus is God. This is your opportunity in your heart to say, Jesus, I believe that you are God, that you are King, and I want a relationship with you, and I believe that you not only died 2,000 years ago on a cross for my sin to set me free, to change my life, but you rose again. You rose again on the third day to change everything and raise me to new life. And so if that's you, this is the best decision you will ever make in your life. And I want to pray for all of us. Put your hands up one last time as we exit this room this morning. God, I thank you that, God, you are doing in us something so significant in this season. God, I thank you that sacrifice is at the helm of this season. That, God, in this season of our lives, God, there are sacrifices that we're going to have to be willing to make, God. We're going up the mountain of the Lord for a higher perspective, God, to see your promise fulfilled in our lives, in the lives of those in KC, but also over this house corporately. That, God, as we go up and get a different perspective, as we level up, God, you are providing the ram. It's a ram season. God, it's a ram season. It's a provision season because of a willingness to go up to a higher perspective, to level up, God, to go up where the altitude is different, where the oxygen level is different, where it might be harder to breathe, but that's where your blessing is, God. That's where your reward is, God. That's where the promise begins in Jesus'